Logistics of feedback delivery. Most teachers understand what it's like to pack up piles of papers at the end of the day, sometimes tucking them in a bag with the intention of sitting down on the couch to provide feedback to students. Oftentimes, teachers do the work of bringing the papers home, unloading them from the car, setting the bag down somewhere, and getting on with their evening. There's also a cycle that often happens after that, where the teacher sees the bag of papers to grade, reminds themselves they have papers to grade, and either pulls them out and starts working, or feels guilty for delaying it further. If you've ever experienced a similar situation, you've probably wondered if there could be a better way. Maybe even a routine that didn't include bringing all that work home. The good news is there are some tips you can use to streamline the feedback process and make it valuable for students at the same time. Hopefully by now you've seen the value of prioritizing learning goals and keeping assessment and instruction aligned. This prioritization also helps when it comes to the feedback process. When teachers know what is most important, they're less likely to feel pressure to provide feedback for every single activity or assignment students complete. When teachers improve efficiency, it also makes the information more timely and relevant to students. So when you're the one giving the feedback, focus on one or two things rather than all the possible feedback you could give. If an assignment is asking students to practice using adjectives, it's not necessary to give them feedback about inaccurate pronouns or other grammar. Keep a running list of comments you've given on particular assignments and reuse the same comments when they apply to more than one person. When an assignment has a number of problems or exercises, rather than marking each item as right or wrong, indicate the number of problems the student should find and fix. If they understand the learning targets well, they can do an analysis of their own work to find what needs to be corrected, rather than the teacher pointing it out. Scan through a set of student work and jot down the key patterns related to strengths and areas to improve. Then provide that feedback to the whole group. Another possibility is to share some of the work with the students, which requires the prerequisite that instruction is focused on priorities and that outcomes and success criteria are clearly communicated to students ahead of time. When they really understand this part, teachers can engage them even at a very young age in the feedback process for themselves and their peers in accurate and meaningful ways. Have students use the scoring rubric to evaluate the work of a couple of their peers. Some teachers use the 2 stars and a wish routine, in which the peer evaluator writes 2 comments of things that were done well, and 1 comment that includes a way to improve. Have students use the success criteria to examine their own work prior to having their peers look at it, as a way to increase their self-awareness and honesty. The teacher can still look at certain pieces of work after students have done self-assessment and peer feedback. In those cases, it can actually speed up the process for the teacher because some of the work is done for them by students first. Play match the comments. Small groups of students get about 4 completed papers and have to use the teacher's list of feedback comments to figure out which paper should receive which comments. This really forces students to examine the work at a deep level. Some other tips for improving the feedback process include focusing on growth to reduce comparisons to other students. The minus equals plus routine involves students receiving comments on their work along with either a minus, equals, or plus symbol to indicate how their work compares to their previous work. If students compare each other's work, what they're comparing is their effort rather than a performance score. Focusing on what's next. Every student deserves feedback that pushes them beyond their current level. Give a brief prompt that will get the student to think about how their learning can always move to the next level, no matter where they currently are. Regardless of which strategies you use to streamline your feedback routines, the questions provided in the Erkin's text are a helpful summary of the purpose of feedback. Remaining focused on these principles will increase the value of your feedback while reducing the stress around it. Ask yourself, does my feedback elicit a productive response? Does my feedback identify what's next for the learner? Is my feedback targeted to each learner's level? Is my feedback strength-based? And does my feedback cause thinking?